couple of bites for you on this Tuesday. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Black Spring with Autumn on this Real Under on your Tuesday. I have just a couple of bites for you once again, and I'll get you on your way on your Tuesday. But first, I will give a word of thanks to our patrons, subscribers, and of course, the viewers like yourself. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming in on our Real Under. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I do have Luciano who's here. Thank you so much, Luciano. It's nice to see you. And it looks like I have Anarchy Television. Thank you guys so much for coming into the chat room. So I have just a few bites for you today. I'm going to start out in a place that we hear from quite a bit, but in this case, it's going to be Baltimore. We're going to start out with a Baltimore mayor and his, I'm going to start it with his breakthrough situation. So I'm going to throw a little bit of caution to the wind on this segment. So, I guess brace yourself. I have, and I'll also, we have a segment in which I'm going to cover that deals with, when the health department from your school or when your nurse calls, what do you do? There's a little bit of a, interesting twist to that one. And also we have an expose that is probably long overdue, and we'll see how that turns out. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. But we'll take one more quick break and I will be right back.
This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this.
All right. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So we are going to start with our Baltimore mayor story. And, Baltimore, when I think of Baltimore, I immediately think of previous, dare I say, mayorships or city government, for the lack of a better phrase there. But I'm going to go ahead and share this one with you. And hello to Nick Smith. So I'm going to share that with you. It's coming from The Hill. So I don't know if you guys are tossing around the word breakthrough, breakout. I don't know which one sounds better to you. I don't know. Oh, Luciano has a dig for us. He says, or she says, Baltimore. The city should be named Baltiless. That's interesting perspective there. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a full screen on this one. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment. And according to this, and of course I'm going to use my famous covert speech here. According to this, the Baltimore mayor tests positive for the CV-19 in a breakthrough case. All right. According to this, the Baltimore mayor, Brandon Scott, has tested positive for the CV-19, according to a release from his office. Cal Harris, Scott's director of communications, said Scott, who was mocktail tested positive on Monday morning in a breakthrough case. He said Scott was self-isolating at his home. I assume this is his home. I'm not sure what. There's a bunch of typos going on here, but we'll move on past that. Quote, the mayor is asymptomatic and currently feels fine. He will work remotely until he is officially cleared to return to City Hall. End quote, Harris said. Here we go. Breakthrough cases of the CV in mocktail people are uncommon, but not unusual. Now, sit on that for a little bit. The mocktails have been shown to greatly reduce the chances of a person being hospitalized or being, or expiring if they contract the CV-19. Quote, despite being mocktailed and following Baltimore's city health protocols, breakthrough infections are a real threat, end quote, Harris said. He said Scott was supportive of continued mock donation efforts in Baltimore. So you toe the line to the end, right? I find it is a little bit of irony here. I'm just going to talk a little bit candid here. We're seeing more and more people that are, and to me, it seems to be more of the, dare I say that, I'm going to call them the bee stung, that are coming down with this, but then they will not say, anything remotely close to, that they may be concerned, of how they've contracted this. They'll say, they'll make up every excuse in the book, even if it's if it's near fatal. If you guys aren't familiar with Mark Lamont Hill, I think he's one of the latest people that's in the news. But yeah, similar, it's a little bit of a domino effect, or I have no words at this point, but I'm still going to be as covert as I can around here. But there we go. That's Baltimore for you. But as I promised, we also have, I think we're coming up with health czars around the country. We got czars for everything. So this next clip I have for you will be of a college student. You might be familiar with the actual in question, but he'll tell you his story, or he'll let you hear what's actually going on. Looks like from his own health czar at his own school, his own college. So we'll get into that. But before we do that, we will take a short break, and I will be right back. Before I do that, I want to say hello to DJ Vision Barnett. Hi, DJ. It's nice to see you. It's been a lifetime. Hope you're doing well out there. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, so here you have on this next clip is going to be, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this personality in front of you, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe this is Herschel Walker's son, and I think he's attending one of the so-called, let me get it together, the SoCal UCs. So yeah, but I won't spoil the surprise. I'll let you see it for yourself. Thank you so much for coming in. Hello, Rachel Van Ziel. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. So I'm going to give you a taste of the health czar that might be coming, to an institution near you.
All of my classes are online. And I just got this call from my university that they're dropping my classes after we've already paid if I don't report to them about my health. Listen to this. dropping students after they've already paid for classes if they don't upload their vaccination status.
The Student Health and Wellness Center conducts the COVID vaccination and keep track of your records.
And you're calling to tell me you will drop my classes after we've already paid $70,000 for the year if I don't upload something about my vaccine status when all my classes are online. That's what the call is about?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Wow. So I'm shaking right now. I am a college student from home. All of my classes are online. Why does my university need any information from me? I don't go onto the campus. We're on Zoom. I take tests over Zoom. I do school from my living room and my kitchen. We're a week into classes right now, a week in. And I get a call like that? Are you kidding me? This is about health? You're dropping my classes if I don't report to you something about my health when I do it all from home. I can't be contagious because I'm at home, alone, and we've already paid. Wow. Welcome to 2021.
All right. So, okay. So, you know, he's pretty animated all the time. However, I find that to be a little bit interesting that when he says that they've actually come in and said, "Oh, we got to have this right now," but as you can see, they've already paid. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I guess it will be interesting to see it play out. So I'm going to take a moment here to say hello and read a few chats. Hello, hello, Latin Patriot, Rachel Van Ziel. And I do have an answer for you, Rachel Van Ziel. Yes, I did see the cover of a Playboy. I think that is a guy. He's looking kind of the outfit, or Derek, can I call it an outfit? It's almost like it's kind of Eartha Kitt-esque or something. Who actually wants to look at these things right now? Is that what it is? Is that I don't know. Maybe you guys have something else, have something better than I do on this. I'm at a loss. And just really quickly here, shout out to DJ Vision Barnett, who says he's tuning in at work. Well, thank you so much for tuning in from work. And it's a little bit overwhelming. And John H. Roberts is here. He says it's biblical, not political. So yeah, lots of things going on here. And that is very interesting that they would take such a position with somebody who's actually, doing classes from home, which I was wondering if they were, in academia, were they going to eventually phase out the entire Zoom setup, because they were trying to, it's a way of them, exposing or kind of weeding out those who are not compliant. Let's see who else. Latin Patriots here. How are you, Latin Patriot? Nice to see you. And yeah, it's just, that whole scene looks like Eartha Kitt, or I don't know who these people are imitating. What did they say? How does the saying go about imitation being the most genuine form of flattery? We got to draw the line somewhere, right? And Rachel Van Ziel says, "Let us play with your DNA." All right. Well, I appreciate it so much. And it's good to see you. It looks like you're in the spirit of Halloween. I'm going to take a quick break here, and I will be right back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Rachel Van Zyl says they are capable. And she also says, not saying they are, but tech is very capable of messing with your codes. She says, as in the days of Noah. Thank you so much, Rachel Van Zyl. I really appreciate that. I will certainly give that more than a second look. I really appreciate it. And Derek C. Williams is here. He said, was watching the documentary film COVIDland. I'll put it aside for now, late to the party. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it, Derek C. Williams. So the next thing I kind of want to get to is kind of, it's kind of going back to, I don't know, what can we say, maybe 2 years ago. But this is actually going to be, we're going to talk just a smidge, going to a liner that's involving R. Kelly. So it looks like he's back in the news. And I'll tell you what that's all about. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to say that this particular case, we've heard all of the digs about Hollywood, and I don't know. This, of course, could be more than juicy, but I think, who knows? Will he survive this? And that's the conspiracy theorist in me that says, if he does this expose, will he survive? And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'm going to cover that with you in just 1 second. All right, so we're going to go to a liner from News Punch. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So I'll be giving you the full screen on this one. It's just kind of interesting. Like, you have this, to me, this is a huge ring. So I just think this is going to be huge if anything comes of it, but we'll see. I think there's a lot of people in the ring. Dare I say, okay, so this is what we have from newspunch.com. The headline goes, R. Kelly vows to expose Hollywood pedophile ring. Big names will be revealed. Okay, so this was released on yesterday. All right, so according to this, R. Kelly has vowed to expose a Hollywood pedophile ring and name other celebrities as part of a sentencing deal with prosecutors, according to reports. R. Kelly wants to dish the dirt on other Hollywood elites who he claims have also engaged in child R splat. According to an insider who has known R. Kelly for decades, quote, R. Kelly and his team are working with the feds to reduce his prison time. He'll provide evidence against other celebrities who were pedophiles, and they'll reduce his sentence, end quote. The alleged friend made the claims to hip-hop publication Dread's World on condition of anonymity. His claims that one of the people R. Kelly is prepared to expose is a, quote, rapper, end quote, and the other is a, quote, huge singer, end quote. Dreadsinfo.com reports R. Kelly has worked with dozens of the biggest names in music throughout his career. Last week, after weeks of testimony and entry of evidence, and after 2 days of deliberations, the jury found Kelly guilty on 9 crimes, including racketeering, sexual exploitation of a child, kidnapping, bribery, sex trafficking, and a violation of the Mann Act. He faces up to 100 years in prison unless he cuts a deal with federal prosecutors. Yeah, what a wave. Honestly, if you go back into the 90s, I think a lot of this stuff was, dare I say, was running hot back then. And a lot of people, I think, are probably, could be implicated in something like this. Let me just give a Luciano has already got it. There you go. You got the t-shirt ready? Luciano says R. Kelly did kill himself. Yeah, We'll see. We'll see. And Derek C. Williams says R. Kelly was to be, quote, Arkansas-sided, end quote, if he wants to talk. And Rachel Van Ziel says, R. Kelly, I think he's a distraction from the real world events that affect our future. Now, I thought the same thing, Rachel Van Ziel, when I first saw this particular liner. I'm just thinking, okay, what other way to distract people than with Hollywood and the past Hollywood? Dare I say, do I call them the dawns of the 90s? I mean, what? I'm not saying everybody knows these references, but I think R. Kelly was considered like with Pied Piper, or he was almost, people that are fanatic, almost considered him as a god. Like they would do anything, including drop off their kids backstage, and and all the singers that they produced. In the 90s, you guys remember there were tons of groups back in the 90s, dare I say, whether we talk about girls groups, guys groups, there were tons. Many of them they kind of got away from a little bit of the doo-wop in the style or the harmonies, got, auto-tuned out or thinned out with that auto-tune. But in his for lack of a better word, heyday, there was a lot of, I think, to me, a lot of talent, and a lot of these girls were very young. Some of them were solo, and I think the circle was very small. The ring was, it got smaller and smaller. So shout out to everybody in the stream, and Puidem is here. Let me read the comment here. Let's see. Hold on. Derek C. Williams says, I don't have the shirt, but I do have a ball cap that says, quote, Epstein did not kill himself. See, you guys are on it. Like, you guys are on it already, but I'm waiting for that to come out. Whereas to Rachel's point, or is this indeed just another distraction? Because there are so many things. There's so much at stake right now. And, the bills that are being passed right now. Well, I think there was a CRT one that came out today. Like, yikes, fully loaded, right? It's like a lifetime is almost like not enough to get into. One report will not handle all of these developments that we have going on. All right, so I have Rachel Van Ziel, who says they are using him to expose people like him. Doesn't make sense. And I don't know, I'm going to put the link out here just for a little bit. You guys have something, if you want to pick up the phone. If not, I appreciate you guys so much for coming in. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back to say salute on this Real Under. And, I have just one more for you. And it's going to be concerning the HBCUs. But before I do that, I will be right back. All right, we are back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I do have a caller here. Looks like it's Derek C. Williams. Hi, Derek C. Williams. How are you?
Yeah. Intelligence done right. Shout out and respect due to Black Spring with Autumn. How you, young lady?
Derek, I'm doing well enough. How are you?
Still chilling. Every day above ground is a good day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. What have you give us anything you want on anything that we've scratched the surface on, because all of these topics are, you can deep dive, you can go anywhere you want. So what have you got for us?
Well, basically, I believe I put in your chat a few minutes ago because I'm just walking in. It's my understanding that the federal government, if they come for you, it's anywhere between 96 and 97% conviction rate. You ain't getting out. And so for him to cut a deal and he's facing 100 years, what deal on earth could he possibly cut the way he's not going to? Me and R. Kelly the same age. He's 54 too. So if they took 40 years off, that means at 94 years old, he's going to be a dead man. So what deal could he possibly cut to even see freedom again? I just don't get that. I don't get where he says unless he cuts a deal, he's facing 100 years. At this date, for anybody over 50, you can call the dogs essentially. But I will say, I really do. I have a red baseball cap that's in Donald Trump fashion. Salute the Tyrus Band. I see you, boy. I do have a red baseball cap that says Epstein didn't kill himself. And as we know, back in the 1990s, Vince Foster, who, as it turns out, was sleeping with Hillary Clinton, he got what they famously call Arkansas. He just turned up dead. And so if R. Kelly wishes to talk about a pedophile ring, the lady that just was talking about Bill Clinton with Larry Elder 2 weeks ago, she just reported, I think last week, that somebody tried to run her off the road. So if R. Kelly is in lockup like Epstein was, he gonna find his neck broke if he talking about he wants to talk about a pedophile ring. That is a very hardcore, serious, tight-knit, take no prisoners bunch. I should tell you, I don't think I ever told you, but I did. I think I sent it to Tyrus Bane and a few other content creators. The reason why YouTube took my channel down is because I was telling you about the San Francisco Gay Male Choir. And I thought that any concerned citizen, or especially parents, will want to know that the San Francisco Gay Male Choir had a song that says, "We will convert your children." So I put that on my second YouTube channel. They took that down. As it turns out, they filed an injunction to have that song blocked, because it wasn't just me. It was a bunch of other, because I got the email. It was a bunch of other content creators put that up with, probably in the same vein. It's like, yo, you got these grown men, some of which are registered pedophiles, talking about they gonna convert your children. And so they took my channel off that basis. And they said, because of my, because I talk about the jab, and I call Susan Wojcicki an idiot and a tyrant and all, and stuff like that. I understand why they took the channel, so to hell with Susan Wojcicki. All right. But if R. Kelly wishes to talk about this thing, he barking up the wrong tree, man. He gonna get his neck broke. Bottom line.
Well, I don't think he's the fact that he's even putting the feelers you're putting the feelers out there already, like you're laying the ground, for something, for something rough. But I have no idea. I think it's I think they tried to cover it up, I think about a year and a half ago, when they were talking about the former President Trump and all the things that were going on with the children and the human trafficking. And I don't think most people were, that's, you get the conspiracy theorist, charge if you say anything about that stuff. But we'll see how far he gets. I don't know if he's in custody now. I don't know where he is. But
Well, well. If you look at my avatar, you see OUR. That's a foundation that ex-military, ex-Navy guy like me, his name is Tim Ballard. He has an organization called Our Underground Railroad, and its function is to go globally and to rescue at-risk children who are in sex slaves and basically the sex trade and slavery. This is no conspiracy theory. This stuff is going on as we speak. And so if you look at my shirt and my cap, I am kind of like a honorary kind of pseudo member of that organization. I understand that Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's a part of it as well. And this is something that goes on. They had a billboard up here in Philadelphia a few years back, and they took it down. They said anywhere between 9 and 13 children a day come up missing in the Philadelphia area. Now, we got 1.5 million people, so I don't know if it's that many or it could be few, but I do know young girls do come up missing, and they end up somewhere, with some old dirty old man with money. So there is no conspiracy theory about regard to these rings. I think Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut bore that out. There is no conspiracy, and well, at least as far as at least my reading of all this here, it is definitely rings in this world where they are taking these little children and young girls and young boys and having their way with them. And so, like I said, if you look at my shirt, it says Our Underground Railroad. That's what Our stands for. And so, like, that stuff is, as a parent, that stuff should mean something to you. And even if you ain't a parent,
right.
Even, Tyrone Bain, you're going to go to Our Underground Railroad. Just type in Our Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard, and that should pull it up. As a matter of fact, I found that because the guy that played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, he's actually doing a film in honor of Tim Ballard, and they were talking about it. Had Jim Caviezel in tears. And so when I went to go look into it, I say, oh shit, they legit. So Tyrone Bain, you're going to go to Our Underground Railroad or our.org, I think it is, and just type that into the search engine, and it should take you right to it. All right, and so like I support them. I've given them money. You see, I rock their apparel. Tim Ballard ain't to be F with. Like that's a hard. As a matter of fact, there's another one too. You may be interested. His name is Craig Sawyer. And he does the same thing. Because what it is that this kind of going in line with what you're saying about Trump. Trump was mopping up all these pedophiles. Nobody can dispute that. That stuff was going the way of the dodo bird with that guy in office. That's well known. So but regarding R. Kelly and stuff like that, like he trying to save his trying to save his neck. Good luck with that. Like I said, he's 54. It ain't no deal he can cut to come up out of that. So he gonna die in jail.
Well, and that's what, and see, when they give those, dare I say, the life sentences, and when somebody's already, dare I say, I'm not saying that what anybody's, number is. I'm not saying what anybody's number is going to come up, but I'm saying it's like, well, the most that person can do would be, I started thinking, well, maybe 50 plus, but all this, a century for these things, they probably burned 20, they probably burned 5 of them, years ago or 10 years ago when, because this is not the first time that he's been brought up on anything, so you've already kind of squandered whatever opportunity to even get anywhere close, I think above 50 years of a sentence.
Well, I'm not a legal scholar or none of that. Like, as you know, my little thing was I'm just one guy in the comment section on YouTube. I just happen to read a lot. It's just but if I was a betting man, I think they gave that round number of 100 just to put the fear of God in people and to set a precedent and stuff like that. I mean, if the dude gonna die in jail regardless, if they'd have gave him 35 years, most black men only live to about around maybe 63, something like that. So if they'd have gave him 25, it's a wrap anyway. But that you would think for I don't know the gauge, but I mean I'm guessing they hitting him with this amount of years for the amount of charges he had or something like that. But it's just interesting that they gave a nice round number of 100. And so when you was reading, when you was reading off the report where they said that he's going to try to cut a deal, first thing popped in my head, like, what on earth deal could he cut the way he gonna see home again? Lights out. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I didn't tell you, but I did tell someone else on you there too, Queen's Throne. As you know, I'm a healthcare worker, and of course they wanted me to take the hokey pokey, which I would never take, not willingly. You're going to line me up at a firing squad. I'm never doing that. But I did secure a religious exemption. But if not, I had that paperwork ready to go. Derek ain't doing it. Never. No time, never. So we live to fight another day. And that's pretty much I got going on, and just trying to raise my daughter and survive. That's about it.
Well, I appreciate that so much, Derek C. Williams. And and I make all these, when I go into whether it's, R&B, hip hop, whatever, coming out of the 90s, I think we were at least suspecting the teeny boppers of that time were at least suspecting. But I've heard stories of people who actually went to the concerts and who were trying to get to the concerts and what, I've heard these things, but I didn't go to concerts at that age. So, all I can do is hear about things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the dude legendary. I used to live in Chicago in 1980, and I don't recall a rock and roll McDonald's, but you would hear the stories because people in hip hop would talk about it. This guy would actually again, me and him, we both born in 1967. But here you are, a 20-something-year-old man, and you parked in front of the Rock and Roll McDonald's in Chicago, looking at the little teenagers. Something wrong right there. Now, but the thing is that I blame the adults that knew, because you enabled him, you emboldened him. The little girls, they idiots. The little girls don't know no better. They see a superstar. But it was the adults who essentially left these kids to die. So I blame them more than I blame the predator. The predator is out there. He out there, yet the adults is too cowardly to say something. Nobody, and my daughter tell you, I believe in corporal punishment. Nobody whooped no child's ass. Nobody did nothing. They let this dude come in and he had his pick of the litter. And so that's in lies. That's where you make a monster. So, but it's well known. Anybody that's deep in hip hop, everybody know that story. He would, camp out at the Rock and Roll McDonald's in Chicago and pull these little girls.
I had never heard of that. I mean, when I think about him, I think about Aaliyah, and that's about all I can kind of, because I don't know the intricacies of, the before. I know he was in a guy group, and then after that, public announcement, that group, and then, but even that stuff was still a little bit ahead of my comprehension. But then I just didn't really know anything about him, or I just knew that everybody was, anybody that could say he was a producer for them, or he's producing so and so, and it was always these were young people.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this last little bit, then I'll drop down. I want to, Bogart time and stuff like that. And thank you for having me on. But sure. Once again, we're talking about emboldening him and making him who he is. Mr. and Mrs. Houghton, Aaliyah's parents. How do you account? Well, how do you reconcile that young girl, Aaliyah, get married with the paperwork is all out. The paperwork is easy to pull up. She married this dude when she was underage. So what did that say about Aaliyah's parents?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like,
straight garbage. And so, like her brother a few years back was talking about how bad R. Kelly had did her, but he never said nothing about his mom and daddy that left that girl to die. So I blame them. They knew this girl was trying to be a singer. They knew R. Kelly was an older guy, and they let this girl go marry him anyway. So I blame them more than I blame R. Kelly, even though he a scumbag. So that's pretty much all I want to say. And thank you for having me on your channel, Black Spring.
Well, thank you so much, Derek C. Williams. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you around, wherever available. And yes, let's talk. Send me an email.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Ladies
you
and
take
gentlemen,
care.
you too. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek C. Williams, thank you so much for coming in. So yes, we've had a couple of liners, and I wanted to get into that one just briefly on the R. Kelly scenario because I do believe more is going to come out about that, and that's if dare I say, if he survives all the, if he can get it, if he gets it out, if he gets any digs in on this, I don't know. Most people doubt it. But I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in. And for that last story, and then we will be on our way. I want to go to a story on the HBCUs and what I'm hearing on looks like to me an undercut of funding. And but I want to tell you the irony about that. But before I do, I'm going to take a quick little break here, and I will be right back.
This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much once again. And what I'm going to go to for our final segment of this segment of Black Spring with Autumn will be a liner on the HBCU funding cut by $30 billion in the Biden budget. And according to this, some Black Democrats are not having it. So whatever that means, what is that? The bark is loud, but the bite, I just think, they're trying to appeal and kind of calm and kind of coddle their progressives, but they had to have some idea. But a lot of people, it's just Uncle Joe, he can do whatever he wants. He can tell us whether or not what it means to be Black, and he can giveth and taketh away. It's almost like this is a lot of these people's prophets, not mine. And I say this all the time, the shoe fits where, if it doesn't, we'll move on. But let's go there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. All right. In this liner, we have a story on the HBCUs, and it's coming out of the Black News Daily. Shift the culture. And this story has been everywhere. I've seen it posted quite a few places. But how does the slogan go? We did it, Joe. That's courtesy of your VP, Harris. According to this, some Black Democrats are not here for the nearly $30 billion cut to HBCU funding in the latest version of President Joe Biden's $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill. One of them has even threatened to vote against it if the issue is not resolved. The U.S. Rep. Alma Adams of North Carolina is the co-chair of the HBCU caucus. She, along with fellow Democrat HBCU graduate Senator Dr. If it's not enough to be Senator Dr. Raphael Warnock, the first Black man elected to represent the state of Georgia in the Senate, have publicly objected to how drastically the proposed funding to historically Black colleges and universities was cut. Okay, initially Biden proposed $55 billion in funding to HBCUs in his what? Kick Back Better plan? No, quote, the Build Back Better plan. However, when the bill went to Congress for reconciliation, it allocated a total of $30.5 billion, the BNC News reported. The new proposed funding includes $27 billion in tuition subsidies, $1.45 billion in instructional aid, and $2 billion to improve research and development infrastructure. However, HBCUs will have to compete with other minority-serving institutions, MSIS, for the smaller pot of funding. For Adams and Warnock, this was unacceptable. The duo sent a letter to the colleagues in Congress proposing a counter compromise, which asked members give back $15 billion of what was originally allocated, but no deal. Adams was not having it, and she said she wouldn't vote for the bill in its current form. Quote, this is contrary to President Biden's own goals for HBCUs and MSI funding, end quote. Adams wrote in the letter, according to Inside Higher Ed, quote, if this language as written becomes law, it is accurate to say that HBCUs will only successfully compete for pennies on the dollar. Quote, transformative legislation that invests in the American people and helps us, hashtag, build back better, must invest in our strongest engines of upward mobility, our hashtag HBCUs, end quote. Adams added in a tweet on Tuesday, September 28th, quote, historically Black colleges and universities are having a moment. The time is now for Congress to meet that moment. Okay, so we're going to go to the end here. HBCU's presidents also opposed to HBCU funding cuts in the reconciliation bill. Members of the 1890 universities, which is a foundation comprised of HBCUs designated as land-grant institutions by Congress, sent a letter decrying the funding cuts. Quote, our universities have produced some of the nation's greatest minds, and the funding proposed would allow us to continue producing scholars, end quote, the letter said. Quote, we hope that we can count on your support of this request by adding significant funding for our institutions through the budget reconciliation process. Conversely, failure to include such investments would leave a significant gap as Congress and Biden-Harris administration seek to rebuild our nation's public infrastructure, end quote. Dr. George T. French Jr. is the president of Atlanta, Georgia-based HBCU Clark Atlanta University. He said HBCUs are in dire need of funding for infrastructure and research. Quote, we're looking at institutions that have been in existence for 150, 160 years. My institution since 1865. So we have serious infrastructure needs first. Then we're looking at research and development needs for the STEM disciplines so that we might help our country, end quote, French said. I assume this is Rodriguez Murray, senior vice president of the United Negro College Fund, echoed French's sentiment, saying HBCUs are the best at reaching students on the lower economic rungs of society, giving them a hope for a brighter future. Quote, it's not just Black students that are on the campuses. But the thing you have to look at is the fact that these colleges are the best in the country at educating first-generation college students, and they're the best in the country at educating those that come from underserved backgrounds, economically disadvantaged backgrounds, end quote. Murray said, quote, so if you look at all types of colleges and universities, compare them to HBCUs educating those types of students, HBCUs win hands down, so that is the reason for the investment, end quote. According to French and Murray, it is an investment that has been denied for far too long. Quote, the promises of the nation to our population overall, end quote, regarding federal funding has been left unfulfilled, quote, forever, end quote, French said. Quote, when we look at this budget reconciliation, it gives our nation the opportunity to make right the wrongs of decades, the wrongs of over 100 years, end quote, French said. Historically, Black colleges and universities make an indelible impact on American society. This is a time where if you're going to, quote, well, I'm saying, quote, build back better, you have to build back and you have to build up institutions that have always been historically underfunded and disadvantaged, and those are historically Black colleges and universities, end quote, Murray said. So I of course, I think you guys remember And some people, there's been controversy even on the fact that at the previous administration had given more, had, I guess, given an endowment that was larger than the previous one on funding when it came to funding for the HBCUs. I'm not sure, but I'm going to tell you what I find more disturbing. To me, with everything that's going on, you have this situation. This is a bill. Everybody's paying attention to this bill, but at the same time, I think many of the HBCUs are getting a lot of attention right now due to the football season. But I just think that, you know, as long as they give you the bread bowls, you know, and keep you distracted, you know, you're not going to pay attention to any bills. So I find it interesting that you know, you're getting these outcries from the esteemed people from the HBCUs, but the general public is, dare I say, they're not giving a damn, really. They're not paying attention to this stuff. But they voted for Air Biden, and then this is what they get. So and then what is it, Kamala? She graduated from Howard, allegedly. She graduated from Howard. And I think, what did they make her, like an honorary? She's like some type of honorary sorority sister or whatever. It's just, to me, to me, this highlights the elite. And you know how much look at the flowery writing, even in this article. I just don't think they're not getting down to business, and people are not paying attention to their civic duty at all times. It's only when it serves them that they want to be interested in what the heck's actually going on. All of the educational systems need, you know, to be built up if you get down to it. I will say I have plenty of experience with HBCUs. I'm not going to go into that. That's another show. That's a show in itself. But I do think the way that things are managed now versus the way that the intent for it versus the intent that they started out with, when what they're doing right now is two different things. And I think that's why a lot of things are the way that they are. And that even comes down to funding. And when we talk about infrastructure, and I'm not going on a rant, but when I think about HBCUs, I do think about Tuskegee Institute. These are places in which the students actually built the buildings on those campuses. And I think that was a time in which the Black or the African American community, you know, they basically were living the principles of under the philosophies of Booker T. Washington. That generation used their hands, whether it was agriculture from George Washington Carver, or whether it was Booker T. Washington, in which they were putting the schools together with their hands. They were the infrastructure back then. And I think we've just become and this is society overall, I think we've just relied on the government too much. And we've all fallen into the same trap that's kind of got us in the same ilk right about now. We're not using our hands. We're wanting instant gratification, and we want the government to do it. And now look where it is. So I'm not going to go on too much of a rant, but so for those of you on the HBCU, that's what HBCU stands for, because a lot of people don't know what that is, or how many of them are there that exist, or where do they exist. They don't know anything about it, but I just, you know, I'm not surprised. And we'll see what else. How many more broken promises how many more broken campaign promises do you need? How many? If you're going to stick with the political, you know, allegiance and loyalties. But once again, I appreciate you guys so much for coming in on this segment. And I'm going to say salute to everyone on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And thank you so much for Derek C. Williams for picking up the phone. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So I'm going to be saying salute to everybody in the stream and thanking you guys one final time for coming in on this segment. So Luciano was here. Thank you, Luciano, for coming in. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And Anarchy Television was here. Nick Smith, thank you so much for coming in. And DJ Vision Barnett, who was tuning in from work tonight. Thank you, DJ, for taking a break with us. And Rachel Van Ziel, it's always nice to see you. And thank you so much. And thank you guys over on Twitch. Thank you guys so much. And John H. Roberts, thank you for coming in. Latin Patriot was here, or she's still here, maybe. She's spreading the pumpkins and the ghost around. Derek C. Williams, thank you so much for coming in and supporting the channel. And I don't know, we should comment of the night. Pre-Dem's here. Thank you, Pre-Dem. And yeah, I think that's going to kind of wrap us up on this segment. I really appreciate it. So and Tyrant Spain, thank you so much, Tyrant Spain, for coming in and for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And yes, thank you, Derek C. Williams, for sharing that information on some of the rescue foundations. I think I'm familiar with who you're speaking about. If I'm not mistaken, it seems like, did he adopt? Seems like, so I know somebody that actually adopted a couple of kids from Haiti. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that hour information. And you can drop any of that in the stream as well if you would like to. But yes, and Derek C. Williams says on the HBCU note, he says that Mississippi Valley State University is dying in slow motion. Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest. It's been politics, and I think politics has ruined a lot of these universities, and they've gotten so far away. It's really. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm starting to see HBCUs that look like they're just kind of run by elite. And dare I say, like, run like liberal cities in many cases. But nobody's going to talk about that. And I think some of these students, it's just like anywhere, they will take on students and they know these students don't have good chances at, making it outside of, or even passing some of these things, but they'll still take their money. And I think that's criminal. If you take a student on for 4 years, and then they can't pass any of their clinicals or any of their compulsory exams, and then they end up having to drop out. I just think that you've just fleeced a bunch of students, and you did it for federal money. And I have a serious problem with that. And I'm saying, to me, at this point, you're either part of the problem or the solution. And I see a lot of problems, and a lot of people that are a part of the problems. They just kind of facilitate, as long as they're getting money, they're going to keep doing what they're doing, even if it's wrong. So, and finally, one more comment from Rachel Van Ziel says, white people dictating even your health care. Yeah, things are getting a little bit, you got health czar. I don't know, like some of these places have health ministers. Where are we now? Thank you so much for that, Derek C. Williams. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you for coming in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And of course, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next live stream, in the comment section on the video, another live stream. Yeah. All right, guys, have a great rest of your Tuesday night.